Hello, my name's Emchmu, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make mountain ranges with World Edit. It's not too difficult of a process, so don't be too scared. So let me show you. As you can see over there, we've got a little bit of mountain ranges in the process. So they're going well, but over here is where I want my next mountain. I did have to remove some of the terrain just to make it a little bit more flat, but this is where I want the mountain to begin with. So the first command you want to do is //wand. Now, what this does is it basically gives you a little wooden axe that turns into a World Edit wand. So to make sure that this is the axe you want and not just a random wooden axe, you can always just click the ground. If it reappears, then it's a World Edit wand because you can see in the corner it says first position set to, and then the coordinates. You select the first position by breaking and the second position by placing. Now, with your wand, the next command you want to do is //brush. Now this basically turns your axe into a brush really, and there's a bunch of different settings that you can put on it. In our case, we are going to do //brush sphere. Now that's just going to make a bit of a sphere, which is what we want, and in the next space, we're going to put the block. Now, for a mountain range, the easiest way to do it that I found to kind of counteract that spherical look is you want to use sand or any kind of gravity blocks, anything that falls, so it won't stay in a direct circle or a sphere, and it will just fall into more of a random shape, which makes everything look a little bit more natural. So usually with it, depending on how big is depending on how much you want your radius. So having this, it just sends it to the default, which is about 2 or 3-ish. But if we change here, we can just simply add a number, and the highest you can go is 6. So anything between 1 and 6 is fine, and that just shows the radius of how big your sphere is. So because I want this to be quite a large mountain, we've got 6. So it just makes a massive sphere there, and that's exactly what we want. Now with the brush tool, you just want to paint around in the kind of area you want your mountain. So just start off by making like a kind of uneven oval or circle, just wherever you want the mountain, just place this a few. Now as you can see, the sand works really well because the gravity blocks, it falls down, makes it a little bit more natural, but you can still see that these are all spheres, and you can tell that it's the sphere tool that I used, but we will fix that in a second. So we just want to draw up the mountain into a point. So if you span this a little bit too much, you will cause some lag. Oh, there we go. And it causes a little bit of a strange pattern with some of the falling stuff. But that's fine. It doesn't really matter what kind of order you put these in. I just try and fill these up. As long as you make it go up into a general cone shape, it is fine. So you can always go back and just have a look at how it's going. It's probably best to just keep building it up until you're happy with the height of it, and it makes it look a little bit natural, or as natural as you can make it. Sometimes it takes a little while, so this mountain is a little bit larger, so it's gonna take a little bit to build up. You want the cone as well to be quite tall, so don't make it as like a dome, because this isn't tall enough. This isn't very mountainy. It's hilly, but it's not quite mountainy. It's not really what we want. So by building this up just a little bit more, as you get to a certain point, you can kind of figure out where you want the height. And again, it doesn't matter if this is even because mountains never are, so it kind of looks a little bit better if it's a little bit more random. And yeah, we're getting there slowly. We've almost got it at the height we want it. That's probably a good height, I think, for the size of this. Maybe it's a little bit small, but I kind of want this a bit small. I want it to still be able to see the ocean quite well. So we'll just build up the back a little bit here with our brush tool, and yeah, you just basically you spam the sphere tool around here. Now if you want a smaller mountain or a smaller area, you can just change the radius size to something like 3, and it gives you a lot smaller of a radius. It's the same with any finer details you kind of want to put in. This would work as well, and I'm pretty happy with the general shape of this. Now the issue with this right now is you can tell that I use the sphere tool all around. It's very obvious, especially around the bottom. Up the top, not so much because it's kind of moved down here with the gravity blocks, which is what we like. So what I like to do is you can use this wooden axe, but to me it's easier if I grab something else like a gold sword. what we're going to do with this gold sword is, it's nothing special right now, but we're going to bind the brush tool. So if we just go, while holding the gold sword, we go slash brush and we go smooth. And then we tab down a little bit until we reach the solid point. So slash brush smooth hashtag solid. And we want to put the radius just after the smooth section. So in this case, I want it to be quite large, so I will use 6. You can see if you do it wrong as well, it will, okay, let me just enter this. So you can see if you do it wrong, so I did it wrong just before, it shows you where everything needs to be. So the slash brush smooth, that's where the radius can go. Iterations in the mask. So the radius is right after the smooth point. So I want it as 6, which works well. And as we just go around, you can see it just smooths everything. 6 might be a bit too much. I was using 6 for the big mountain over there, and I think here it might be a little bit too intense. So I'm going to change it to 4. And what we do is we just go around, we smooth. Try starting near the bottom, so you get rid of the general spherical look of the bottom, and it melds into the current terrain. And we just go around here until it looks a little bit more natural. So all the way up here, just kind of spamming the click button in a shape that makes sense. Anywhere that looks a little bit out of place or unnatural or spherical mostly, that's where we're going to put the brush on. So over here it's got a bit of a strange bump, so we're going to fix that by just smoothing it down a little bit, making it a little bit more naturally generated. And again, using the sand and gravity blocks is great because it makes a natural point as you go. So that is perfect. So yeah, this is looking quite good. It's a bit spherical at the bottom still, but overall I think this looks great. It's a little bit twisty, which is great. It gives a bit of more of a natural look for the mountain, and it's not perfectly circular, which is also great. It bulges out a little bit there, so we're just going to look from afar and smooth the edge over there just a little bit. Maybe make the top a bit more of a point. And I think I'm happy with how this looks generally. So anything that seems out of place, just hit it with the smooth tool and it should kind of even out a little bit. So I'm pretty happy with how this looks. Now the next command that is the easiest is you want to go / replace near. You don't have to be holding anything for this command to work. You just have to be nearby. So / replace near, and we have to do the radius that we want to. In this area, so we want to do 50. 50 might be a bit too much, but it should be all right at least. I haven't got any other sand around. And then we put the block we want to change. So we want to change the sand and we want to change it into stone. So what this command does is in the radius of 50 around your player, it will change whatever block you choose into another block. So in this case, it will change the sand into stone. I haven't got any other sand builds around, but do be cautious if you do have sand builds around. There is a more direct selection tool you can use instead, but otherwise this is the quickest and easiest way to use this command. And then we just hit enter. It replaces everything nearby. It wasn't quite enough, so that's all right. We just have to go over this side, press T, up, and then there we go. It'll replace everything, almost, still not quite. And there we go. And if you're still not happy with the shape, that's completely fine because you can still use the smooth tool on this. It's just the gravity blocks give it a bit more of a natural look in my experience, but the smooth tool does still work with the stone. So right now we've got a basic mountain and we've got the general block palette that we're going to use. Now the next thing I like to do, you can also do it instead of just replacing a stone, but I prefer to replace it with stone first and then work on the next part, which is the texturing part, because it gives me a general idea of how the mountain looks, because sometimes the mountain looks a lot better in sand than it does in stone, so it's good to just have that idea of how it looks like in a grey colour palette. So what we do now is we want to do the same code that we did before. So / replace near, we'll go 50 again, and we want to replace the stone to a mixture of stuff. So the way you do a mixture of different things is you have to put the percentage and then the block. So in this case, I want this to be mostly stone. So we're going to go 60% stone and then a comma. We have to do 10% tuff, 10% andesite, and 20% cobblestone. So what this does is it retextures everything. So it replaces all the blocks to those percentage in a 50 radius. It will only replace the stone like we did with the sand, but it will replace it to these blocks that we've decided. Again, do be careful you've got no builds made out of stone, otherwise it will texture them even if you don't want it. But otherwise this works quite well. You can use any blocks you want and any percentages you want, however they have to add up to 100% at the end. So as we can see, 60%, 70%, 80%, 90 and 100%. So all these percentages add up to 100. And we just hit enter. And as you can see, replaced. And all of them are in a random kind of textured spot. And it looks great. A little bit of texturing, nothing too major. I like to use those blocks for my texturing, which is the tuff, andesite, and cobble, because they seem to work quite well. They just add a little bit, and yep, we still didn't quite make it around the sides, so that's okay. We can just keep placing the command until we're happy with where all the blocks are. Now, if you want some more, you can keep spamming the command and it'll keep changing all the stone blocks into different ones, but I'm pretty happy with how this looks. Now, I like the general shape of this, however, I do want a little bit of snow, just a bit, on the peak of this, because that's kind of how like a usual mountain will look like. So what I want to do is I want to grab my brush sword again and go / brush, and we want to do paint this time. Now paint basically means it will replace the top block of any surface. So if there's a block on top of it, it won't replace the block beneath, it'll just replace the block on top. So the one facing the sky. Now it doesn't really matter what you do here, cuboid, cell, sphere, I just usually do sphere. So what these three mean is forest will just plant a forest, item will add another block on top, set will replace the top block. So we want to do set, we want to replace the top stone, we don't want to add another layer onto this. And we want to put snow. So I like to do the snow block personally. You can just do the snow piles, but the snow block looks quite well for the tips, and then you can maybe put the snow on the bottom areas if you want. Now, as you can see here, I did do it wrong the first time, but that was on purpose, so I could show you this. If you do it wrong and you do any of the commands wrong, it will tell you here. So it's got the shape here, that's the sphere, the radius, and the density. So the radius is how big you want the sphere to do, so how large of an area you want to paint, and I want that area to be about 3 blocks, and I'm happy with that. I don't want it too much, it's not a massive mountain, I don't need loads, and I'm happy with 3. Now the density, however, I want it to be 100. If you don't do 100, it won't replace all the blocks in that 3 radius. It will just replace some of them, which is alright if you want a bit of more of a random kind of scattered look, but I want this to be snow peaks, so I have to do 100 for the density. And then we just hit enter. Now do be careful, unlike the other ones which just replace stone, these will also replace the grass. But if that happens, that's okay. You can just simply do / undo and it gets rid of it. If you want it back, you can go / redo and it comes back. But I don't want it there, so we're getting rid of it. Now, all we have to do is paint the top here. So as we go along, this is perfect. We kind of go from the top. You can either look down at the top. It has a pretty large reach, so do be careful because you can sometimes accidentally go a little bit overboard and, you know, do the grounds or anything nearby. But I like the way that looks. So we've just got a bit of a snowy peak. It's nothing too major, just a small bit. Now, because I want to give this a little bit of an ombre effect down, I am going to go back to our old brush command and we're going to remove the snow block to just snow. And kind of below here, we're going to replace it with snow. This kind of melds it down just a little bit, and I think it looks a lot nicer with that because these aren't as obvious as the snow blocks, but they're just a little bit to kind of go down. And you can go as far as you want with these. I think they look quite good regardless, and because of the biome this is in, it's going to snow anyway and make these kind of areas. So we can put a little bit of patches around if we want. But that is the easiest way that I've found to make mountains, and I'm always really happy with how these look. And as you can see, I've been making a very large mountain range over here. I have also made a mountain range over that way, but it's quite far away and I don't want to fly that far. So I'll show you guys this kind of mountain range I've got. As you can see, it's all still in sand. I want to kind of work on the shaping a little bit more. There's still some bits that are kind of spherical and I need to fix it, but for the most part this mountain range I'm really happy with, and I'm pretty excited to see what it looks like when I put this all to stone and tuff and all the other variants that I want to use. But it's a really cool way, and connecting these mountains as well looks really nice. So if you want a mountain range, just connect it with the same sphere tools exactly how you did it before, and then smooth it just like you do with the mountains. So I'm really happy with how these mountain ranges are looking, and I'm pretty excited with how it will look like in the end. As you can see, we've got a massive one over here, but it looks pretty cool and I'm very excited with how this will finish up. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something and enjoyed the video. I hope that you can try making these mountains on your own. And I know that World Edit can be a little controversial in the building community. Even I was a little bit hesitant when it comes to World Edit. However, for projects like this at this scale, it's the only tool that is really feasible to use. Doing this all by hand, while possible, will take forever. And the only way to build at this scale and make kind of the creations you want to create is by using tools like World Edit. I don't think it ruins any of the creative process, because you still have to think of all these and you still have to shape it out. It's just on a larger scale, and it only really dulls down the boring parts of Minecraft, you know, like filling walls or filling floors or making massive mountains. But it still helps you with shaping and making everything still very customizable to your liking. So I hope you enjoyed the video, hope you learned something. Let me know if you make any mountains. Share some pictures on the Discord, which you can join in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!